In the aftermath of the First World War, the Washington Naval Treaty was drawn up in 1922 in an effort to stop an arms race developing between Britain, Japan, France, Italy, and the United States. This treaty limited the number of ships each nation was allowed to build and kept the tonnage of all capital ships at 35,000 tons. These restrictions were extended in 1930 through the Treaty of London. However, by the mid-1930s, Japan and Italy had withdrawn from both of these treaties, and the British became concerned about a lack of modern battleships within their navy. As a result, the Admiralty ordered the construction of the new battleship class, the KGV, or King George V class. Due to provisions of both the Washington Naval Treaty and the Treaty of London, both of which were still in effect when the King George V's were being designed, and the main armament of the class was limited to the 14-inch 356mm guns prescribed under these instruments. They were the only battleships built at the time to adhere to the treaty, and even though it soon became apparent to the British that the other seniorities to the treaty were ignoring its requirements, it was too late to change the design of the class before they were laid down in 1937. The keel of Howe, the last ship of the King George V class battleships, was laid down on the 1st of June 1937 at the Fairfield shipyard in Govan. She was originally to have been named HMS Beauty, or Betty, after Admiral David Beatty, commander of the British battle cruiser squadron at the Battle of Jutland. But the name was changed to HMS Howe after Admiral Richard Howe. Howe was launched on the 9th of April, 1940, and completed on the 20th of August, 1942. She carried improved anti-aircraft armament and radar equipment as a result of the lessons learned in World War II. Howe displaced 39,150 long tons as built, and 44,510 long tons fully loaded. She had an overall length of 744 feet, 11.5 inches, a beam of 103 feet, and a draught of 29 feet, 6 inches. Her designed metroconic height was 6 feet, 1 inch at normal load, and 8 feet 1 inch at deep load. The ship was powered by Paterson-geared steam turbines, driving 4 propeller shafts. Steam was provided by 8 Admiralty 3-drum water tube boilers, which normally delivered 100,000 shaft horsepower, but could produce 110,000 ship horsepower at emergency overload. This gave Howe a top speed of 27.62 knots. The ship carried 4,210 long tons of fuel oil. She also carried 183 long tons of diesel fuel, 262 long tons of reserve feed water, and 442 long tons of fresh water. At full speed, Howe had a range of 2,600 nautical miles, at 26 knots. Howe mounted 10 B&L 14-inch 356mm Mark 7 guns. The 14-inch guns were mounted in one Mark II twin turret forward and 2 Mark III quadruple turrets, one forward and one aft. The ship's guns could be elevated to 40 degrees and depressed to 30 degrees. Turning arcs were at turret A, 286 degrees, turret B, 270 degrees, and turret Y, 270 degrees. Training and elevating was done by hydraulic drives with rates of 2 and 8 degrees per second, respectively. A full gun broadside weighed 15,950 pounds, and a swivel could be fired every 40 seconds. The secondary armament consisted of 16 Q1F 5.25-inch 133mm Mark I guns, which were mounted in 8 twin mounts, weighing 81 tons each. The maximum range of the Mark I guns was 24,070 yards at 45 degrees, with HE shells at 2,672 feet per second. The anti-aircraft ceiling was 49,000 feet. The guns could be elevated to 70 degrees and depressed to 5 degrees. The nominal rate of fire was 10 to 12 rounds per minute, but in practice, the guns could fire only 5 or 7 or 7 to 8 rounds per minute. Upon commissioning, along with her main and secondary batteries, Howe carried 48 Q&F 2-pounder 1.57-inch or 40mm Mark 8 pom-pom anti-aircraft guns and 18 20mm .8-inch Oregon AA guns. The Howe also had the ability to carry 4 seaplanes. The seaplanes could be launched off of one double-ended catapult at the center of the ship, near the second control tower on the aft. The seaplanes she could carry were 4 submarine Walrus seaplanes. These could be used for anti-submarine patrols, as well as scouting missions in order to find enemy targets in the region. Howe joined the Home Fleet on the 30th of August, 1942. Her building time extended owing to more urgent demands of the industry. Like her sister ship Anson, she spent the early years of her combat career in Arctic waters, converting convoys bound for Russia. On the 31st of December 1942, Howe and her sister ship the King George V provided distant cover for the convoy RA-51, which safely arrived in Loch Ewe on the 9th of January 1943. Howe and the King George V also provided distant cover for the convoy RA-53 on the 1st of March 1943, and helped to recover merchantmen whose ships had been sunk. In 1943, Howe was transferred to Gibraltar with the King George V to take part in Operation Husky, the Allied invasion of Sicily. The United States battleships Alabama and South Dakota substituted for their absence from the home fleet. The 2 British ships shelled at Trapani Naval Base and Francona during the 11th and 12th of July. Based in Algiers, the pair also offered cover during Operation Avalanche, the Allied landings at Salerno, setting out on the 7th of September. On the 14th of September, Howe and the King George V escorted and surrendered the Italian battleships Vittorio Veneto and Italia, aka the Littorio, to Alexandria. By the end of October 1943, Howe and the King George V had returned to Britain. At the end of the year, Howe underwent a long overhaul at Devonport, where a number of alterations were made. Her anti-aircraft armament was increased. Changes were made to her radar, and her watertight integrity in the stern was improved. Modifications were accomplished in the officers' and crew quarters for operations in tropical climates. These included changes in installation and the extensive use of air conditioning equipment. On the 8th of August, 1944, Howe arrived in Trenton Mounty in Ceylon to join the Eastern Fleet. She was the first modern British battleship to be deployed in Eastern waters since the loss of the HMS Prince of Wales in December of 1941. Howe was put into action quickly, providing cover for carrier-based operations against targets in Sumatra. In December, she moved to Sydney, where she sailed to Auckland, New Zealand, to show the flag. In February of 1945, Howe and the King George V arrived from Sydney to begin operations in earnest in the Pacific Theater. Together with 4 aircraft carriers, 5 cruisers, and 15 destroyers, they made up Task Force 113. The first major undertaking for Task Force 113, now redesignated Task Force 57, was Operation Iceberg, offshore support for the United States landings at Okinawa, which got underway on the 1st of April 1945. The force was subject to spontaneous Japanese kamikaze attacks, but the 2 ships emerged unscathed from these actions. Howe's anti-aircraft batteries also succeeded in shooting down an attacking kamikaze plane. The 2 ships' principal roles were air defense and land bombardment, the latter being carried out very accurately, particularly by Howe against anti-aircraft installations on the island of Minicool, halfway between Okinawa and Formosa. By the first week of June 1945, Howe was back in Sydney, and almost immediately it was decided to send her for a refit in Germany. It was there that she saw out the remainder of the war. She was relocated back to Portsmouth by January of 1946. In 1951, Howe was placed in reserve and towed to Devonport. She was ordered scrapped in 1957. On the 27th of May 1958, Howe was towed to Inkermanning to be broken up by Thomas W. Ward. The Royal Navy presented the ship's bill to St. Giles Cathedral in Edinburgh. In 1912, it was reported that parts from one of the gun turrets may still exist, having been reused as a turntable at Dunrelly Nuclear Laboratory. And that will conclude today's video. I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope you guys did learn something about the HMS Howe. As for pronouncing the way I did for the ship's name, yes, I know you British people will probably criticize it, and I'm perfectly fine with that, but there are multiple ways to pronounce her name, and by the time I realized that it was actually Huey, or Howie, or, yeah, Huey, it was too late, and I was already neck deep in recording, and it was too late for me to change it. So I do apologize for that, and I hope you guys can forgive me. As for other things, not much is actually known about the HMS Howe, or anything to be real, to be honest. Everything that was right here was found from other sources, and not many books were written or that I could get my hands on that actually go into depth about the Huey's history. The Huey and her sister ship, the HMS Anson, are kind of a forgotten myth in the King George V class, because her sister ships of the King George V herself, the Prince of Wales, and the HMS Duke of York all take the spotlight in the matter for their time as warships until their final scrapping. But these ships, especially the HMS Howe here and the HMS Anson, which there might be a video on here in the future, are just kind of a forgotten myth in the naval spectrum. But they are ships, no matter the fact, and they very much did exist. So today, I give the HMS Howe a spotlight. But again, with that being said, I do thank everybody for watching. I really do hope you guys learned something. And if you guys would be so grateful, please do go hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell. And if you did enjoy the video, please hit the like button and share it with your friends. If you guys have any questions, concerns, requests, or general comments that you guys want to make, I do ask that you guys keep the comments respectful, but please do leave those comments. And with that being said, I will see you all in the next video. Peace out.